Okay, it is 6 o'clock. We will call this meeting to order. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Mary Kay, roll call, please.
Dr. Dave Bartle? Andy Mary?
Yes.
Angie Schreiber?
Yes.
Katie Anastringa?
Here.
Dr. Julie Sprague?
Here.
Danny Pyatt?
Here. And with Dr. Bartle being out of the state, actually, he's being grandpa to some of his grandkids. I'll chair this meeting tonight in his absence. Do we have any public comment for this meeting? No? Okay. Item A, Katie Ann, we'll just let you take it away.
Bree, if you'd like to join us right to my left. I'm going to pass the torch to Bree to kind of talk about Edmonton.
Yeah, so I worked a lot with students with credit recovery when I was a high school counselor the first time. And when Carrie Klacke left and I came in March, I kind of jumped right back in and started helping students with credit recovery again. In Odysseyware, which is the main format that we use through RVA, they have like a sheet that you track how much you've spent throughout the year. And when I looked at that, like I initially looked at Clint and I was like, oh my goodness, we've spent almost $20,000 on credit recovery courses this calendar year. And I was like, there has to be something better. So our WINGS program is currently using Edmentum, which is just another credit recovery platform. And so I took it upon myself really to look at like, what is the success rate between the content that we've pulled from RVA and requested from RVA, and what is the success rate of the Edmentum that we're using? And it was like a stark difference between the success rates. So Tyler Lorenz is the WINGS teacher, our alternative ed teacher, and I met with Edmentum, and we just said our current contract that we have with Edmentum only allows for 40 students to be using it. And that's not enough because we were using simultaneously RVA content and Edmentum content. And so we just asked them for different options for what we could use because we've seen success with Edmentum. And actually I had used Edmentum with our students during COVID shutdown that had failed math and needed it to graduate because they had offered it to us for free. So I'd had some history with Edmentum, but Tyler has really used Edmentum mostly this year. And as you can see, just with the presentation that I put together, it's pretty startling, like the differences in success rates between the two curriculums. Sorry, I'm just trying to open the presentation. I'm like, it's not letting me, but it's opened 3 times now. So after meeting with Katie Ann, because we just said, like, is this fiscally even possible? Is it possible to switch to Edmentum with a bigger contract than what we currently use? We actually found out that we also get a $5,000 district connect fee with RVA. And what that means is if we request a single course through RVA, we are charged a $5,000 fee, or I guess it's like a scaling fee.
It's a scaling fee. So this last year, with how many students, the 218 students totaling 113 credits, we were charged the $5,000. That's what it cost us to offer Odysseyware at that level.
Because we weren't sure if we had students that would, or that we would be switching straight to Edmentum, I do have some students who are in Odysseyware courses or RVA content courses currently, and so we will accrue. I want to be super transparent with you. We will accrue some fees with RVA for accessing their credit recovery and course enrichment content for the 5/1/23 to 4/30 of 24
They run
calendar
an
year.
odd calendar year.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
because
that's
that is
why.
their calendar year. And so because
Odd.
we're now in June, I probably have about 10 courses that have been requested via RVA course content. So I don't want to tell you like, we've completely given RVA course content the boot at this moment in time. However, I'm also teaching summer school credit recovery and summer school enrichment for our high school students this year. And whenever possible, I have enrolled students in Adventum. Because we currently have that contract, it will not cost us any additional fees to enroll our students into those courses. So that's,
If I may, Bree, one clarification that
Oh, yeah.
I needed too. It's not like we would want to break our contract with RVA
No.
because we have kids who are fully enrolled in RVA, who take a class here and there. This is strictly for credit recovery.
correct. So we would still be within the RVA consortium. We still have that agreement for clubs, activities, and sports with RVA. Students can still take up to 2 courses, and that is, like, our in-house rule is up to 2 courses at the high school if they're a full-time RVA student. So we would still be very tied to RVA.
So if we have students that are full-time and part-time enrolled in RVA, would we not still have the $5,000 connection fee?
No, because this is just for those additional courses for our primary enrolled students that
Okay.
we're requesting from them.
Okay,
So we would not have that District Connect fee because our students that we house here as primary enrollment would be accessing their courseware through Admentum.
so we do not get charged through RVA a connection fee for our full and part-time students that go with them?
Correct.
We just get tuition cost that we pay to RVA for
Okay.
those fully virtual or part-time virtual students.
Okay. And I see on here that you're saying that the RVA classes are outdated.
They're just really clunky. They're hard for the students to get through. Of course, like, things are blocked all the time that someone needs to go in and manage on a pretty consistent basis. I mean, the amount of just Odysseyware or RVA content emails that I've gotten since I've gotten back is astronomical.
Sounds like Canvas. Canvas is horrible too. I have a
I don't
question.
use Canvas enough to speak to that, but
Yeah, my
Odyssey
daughter
was
uses
really
it,
clunky,
and
and-
it's horrible.
And you can see, or if you dig into the presentation that I sent you, like there's a course through Admentum that's like mobile app development and iOS development, like Odysseyware doesn't offer anything of that sort. And so I think that they are just, how do I say it, more with the times course content as well, more relevant to
Current,
our student
yep.
learners currently.
But we've been looking at for credit recovery, not for electives.
I think we'd be looking, so
Or is that where you're going?
I think we could also offer enrichment.
That would be in addition, but it's within the same price.
Okay.
Correct.
Right now, our focus is credit recovery and seeing the success what that brings, knowing that this opens up a lot of avenues for us to scale, but credit recovery is our first because that's what it would be taking potentially the place of the cost that we have with RVA right now.
Correct.
Okay.
And I actually talked to Andy, sorry. I like let my kids get in the pool and then one of them fell in with her, she was like, I'm done for. And I'm like, you're okay, sorry. What I told Andy is with us going to the new schedule for next year, we have some students who are like, I don't know what to do, or what should I do during that pride time? Clint and a group of us have actually talked about, like, those students could take an enrichment course on Admentum during that time and explore an interest. Or we've got kids who want to take physics, but it doesn't fit in their schedule. Well, maybe they could take physics with Admentum during that time. Like, I think that the application could be much further than just credit recovery.
Okay.
But the whole purpose in looking at this initially was what we're doing for credit recovery isn't showing the success that we need it to show. And so we need to look at something that is showing us the success, but then we thought about how else could we apply this.
Okay, so Edmentum, am I understanding this correctly? Edmentum would cover both credit recovery and as well as, for lack of better terms, like advanced students that want to keep going with their
Correct.
studies.
All under the same price.
Okay. Are they accredited courses?
I don't know the answer to that.
They all check the box. correct? For graduation?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Is that what you're asking?
Yes and
Like,
no,
will
like,
they get high school credit for it?
yes, but do they offer anything that would be college credit at all?
I don't know that they offer any dual credit. I could get that answer for you.
Okay,
But usually they have to like team up with the technical college, and I don't know, because Edmentum is statewide, nationwide.
okay,
So I don't know that they offer any dual credit. I have seen AP courses, college prep courses, ACT prep courses, SAT prep courses within their course catalog.
okay. And then, what was the other one I was gonna ask? It's gone, never mind.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So I know that the board is always curious, like, okay, so what's the long-term plan, right? Right now, we're in a hole with our students that are credit deficient. And our goal is to work to get those students on track, obviously. And then in like future years, we could have less of a contract, because if you look at that contract, it talks about 700 students. That means that 700 students can have an Edmentum account at one time. If we want to add a 701 student, we would need to inactivate one of those current 700 that are in there in order to get that 701 in there. However, I don't think, we're not going to need 700 forever, right? So our goal is to really use this platform to leverage to get us out of this credit deficiency that we're in, to then have less of a contract moving forward.
And how many students would you say are credit deficient?
I can't speak to, Clint, you're like thinking about it too.
Yeah, I mean, that would just be a hip shot.
Yeah, so I had 218 students enrolled in Odysseyware this year alone.
Just for credit recovery?
And 55, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you that maybe 10 of those 218 were for enrichment purposes.
okay. Well, not all those students were in our Wings program.
That is just
So-
Odysseyware.
Okay,
And then Tyler Lorenz had 55 that took credits through Edmentum.
okay,
Some of those Wings students also had to take an Odysseyware course because with the current Edmentum contract, we had very bare bones of what we could offer students. So if they needed something that wasn't in that catalog that we are currently contracted for, then we had to enroll them in an Odysseyware course.
okay. And I don't mean to get into the weeds, but my question is if we're looking at like additional classes or something, if they're gonna be taking it during the schedule time change, will there be like a room designated for that versus them going to the study hall and being constantly, or not study hall, but the different rooms being constantly interrupted by their friends and other groups of people and in and out?
So we haven't discussed that yet. This
Okay.
is really just like kind of a pipe dream if Edmentum goes through. We've also talked about the potential of if like a teacher has one open space in their schedule, maybe they could offer something like this for our students in that quiet environment. Like the student doesn't like any of the class options there. I mean,
We've also been looking at adding that duty per se to an instructional assistant during dry time.
the one thing you also have to take into account is that we had Gail Moore before she retired, who really truly was working with our credit recovery students and was taking care of all of the course enrollment, grading, all of that stuff that went with our RVA course content. With Tiffany Tank and Tyler Lorenz, we don't feel like a Gail Moore's position is necessary anymore. So there would be recouped cost there as well, just to give you a full picture.
Okay.
Andy, I know you asked me about Wisconsin Virtual School, and I don't blame you. Actually, Julie shared some stuff with me. For students to access Wisconsin Virtual School classes, like we currently access Rural Virtual Academy, it would be $290 a class per semester. And I think it's probably because we're not in a consortium with them.
That's interesting, because I get a different price when I talk to Jason, the director of WBS.
Now,
Is that who
for
you
us
met
to
with earlier?
use their curriculum, it's $100 per semester.
Okay.
But for a student to take a class that is specifically managed by WBS, $290 per semester is the cost.
It
So
is.
none of these numbers are the numbers Jason gives me. And so all I would say is, I would like you to talk to Jason.
Well,
um,
I've
that's,
got an
yeah,
email right here from Jason with those numbers in it.
that's where we got them from.
Yeah,
Amy
it's
and I
actually,
did-
Amy, Julie, and Jason, you're welcome to look at that. On
Uh-huh.
April 5th of '23, they met with him, and then this is the partnership services of 22-23 that Julie sent to me. Actually, I got it right after I got off the phone with you.
Okay, well, take this along and show it to him.
Yeah, and the
Bree did
partnership.
not know that Amy and I met with him.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that when we were vetting, you know, the online possibilities. The one key that we are missing with all of our online learners is a person, which Jason said, I think he called it a case manager, actually.
It is.
Somebody to check in with the kids, check their progress, and be that conduit between our district and WVS. And we talked about, could it be an add-on for a current staff member? And that gets a little dicey because it really, depending upon your enrollments, would be a full-time. Like RVA, we have, they do that all. They're the teacher, of course, as you know, but then once the kids aren't cutting it, they just say, you're out. And so then they come back to us and.
With the exception of seniors, they will not send us a senior who's 3 weeks away that
Well,
is almost gonna, you know what I mean? They won't do that because
Good.
that's truly setting them up for utter
Yeah.
failure if they were to kick a senior out 4 weeks before graduation or so. Like, they won't do that. But any other student, they give them a 6-week you haven't participated notice, and then the next time you were to get a notice, you're done and you're back with us. So,
Can Adventum, can that be used for elementary and middle school students?
yes.
Okay. So that
Yes.
would be included in the contract?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's something we thought about too. Like, we've got some middle school students who are really struggling, and so maybe there's some courses on there that they can access that would help with like fundamental reading skills or whatever it looks like. That would be a district-wide license, so anyone in the district, we could enroll in a course.
in Bree, it's by student, so it says 700 students. So I could take 4 classes and still
Correct.
count as only one.
Correct.
Okay. And how, are they like semester-long classes, or are they just like catch-up?
They have multiple,
Catches.
actually.
Okay.
So, for example, today, I just was telling Andy this too. I had a senior who didn't quite make it, failed geometry semester 2. And within 5 minutes, I was able to enroll that student, get them their login information, and they were working on their credits. That's just not possible with our RVA content currently because I email someone and then they get to it when they can. They're great, but
They're also at capacity.
right, if they're not on it right away, right? But I assigned her geometry semester B. I could also assign her like an Accelerate 2 geometry, which is really kind of the nuts and bolts, like if you need a refresher of geometry or whatever that looks like. So they are both available on Edmentum.
So could students in theory, if, like you said, RVA is full, so if we had families that wanted to move over to Edmentum, could the student be enrolled full-time there? Or is it just through the
This
school?
is a school.
It's not a school,
It's
okay.
not a fully virtual option.
Okay,
But I do, so I have a student who has an IEP right now and who is placed at home, and she is incredibly successful on Edmentum using that course content. I mean, she's a little ninja on her work, and she doesn't come into the building. However, my caution with that, Angie, is that we don't have the case manager that like Julie was just talking about. Like what you're talking about is almost like an AIMS again, like the Anago Independently Motivated Students. And that's awesome, but when we had AIMS, we had people at each level who were really checking in with those students and making sure they were getting their stuff done. And depending on the size that could grow to, it would be very difficult for us to manage that
okay.
effectively.
A conversation we had is why Edmentum so much more successful, like the credits earned, but you have to consider that's the WINGS program too. So is it the smaller instruction, the AM, PM, you know, there are different variables in addition to a different platform.
And Odyssey Wear doesn't offer that?
Well, we offer Wings, we have that small
Right.
setting.
Okay, but
I'm
Wings
not sure.
uses the Odyssey Wear, I thought.
They use mainly Edmentum.
Okay.
The only
Sorry, I
time they
got
use
that
Odyssey
confused.
Wear is for
Okay.
those like electives that they, or
Okay, sorry, I got that
outsiders.
confused.
No,
Okay.
that's okay. We've had a lot of Edmentum Odyssey Wear RVA going around.
But you know, Wings is full too when they
Yeah.
presented and, you know, we have a waiting list.
So that really goes back to, should we double the size of Wings? Should we add another teacher, another aide? Because I don't think you're comparing apples to oranges here. You're comparing Edmentum, where we have Tyler Lorenz and the aide, to Odyssey where kids are kind of on their own. So you're not really comparing equals, but,
Go ahead.
you know, do we need to bother comparing, or do we just need to fix the problem? And it's really having that support person, and when I talked to Jason at WVS, he said the success in any program is gonna be that support person, whether that support person is here in the school, in person, or if they're a WVS teacher that they're accessing. And I think we'd all agree that the in-person teacher is probably gonna have more success than the online person.
Can I have clarification what Gail Moore did?
Oh, you're looking at me. I thought you were looking at Andy.
No,
I'm like,
I don't think Andy would know what Gail Moore did, probably about as much as I
Collect a
do.
paycheck. I'm pretty sure.
She did.
Check that box.
So Gail Moore housed credit recovery students in her room
Okay.
for years and years and years, ever since I started seven years ago?
So
Maybe 6?
she would have been that contact or that coach for Odyssey
Correct.
Wear, that
Correct.
in-person.
Yep, and so those students then were housed in Tiffany Tank's room. So those students still have someone who's pushing them to get their Odyssey Wear work completed. And so I think it's probably like a Gala apple to like a Macintosh apple.
Yeah, but
They're different types of apples.
Yeah, but Tyler's got 40 kids and Gail's got 218.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, that's really,
Has
I
did-
Tiffany
I know
weighed
this.
in on Edmonton versus?
She would highly
Wear?
recommend us to go to Edmentum because she works with both, actually. Because she's got like the remnants of the Odyssey Wear from working with Gail Moore's students, and then she houses and helps students through Edmentum as well.
She's the teacher we hired when you approved like an alternative ed position when we knew we had this need, and so she's in her first year here. But works with typically younger students at the high school because Wings is primarily those who need to get in to earn credits for graduation,
Yeah.
correct?
Yep. And I've also had some conversations with students. Like, you were in Odyssey Wear, you weren't successful in Odyssey Wear. What happened there? Why weren't you? Now you're in Edmentum. What are your thoughts about the differences? Like, which program do you feel like is more navigatable or doable? And the students that I've had conversations with say Edmentum. Now, I'm not gonna say that's the entire population because I haven't asked all of the students. But there have been, actually, Nathaniel was there when I had that conversation with that student. And, I mean, the student was pretty passionate, like, Odyssey Wear was awful and Edmentum is better. So,
And I'm just trying to keep it all straight in my head. So Odyssey Wear is used by the RVA.
correct.
Okay, so Bobby, if you could answer this, I know your daughter was in RVA. Was there a lot of problems with the Odyssey Wear from you? There was? Okay. Okay.
And I didn't know how many she would have accessed, because she was a full-time RVA student.
Okay, yeah.
Right, and I'm not sure how that classification works either, because she did have a couple classes in.
She was partially enrolled here, primarily enrolled in RVA.
Oh, that's what you
Yep.
call it, primarily.
Yep.
So the problem with RVA was the amount of different platforms that they used. There was Odyssey Wear, there was Buzz. There was their regular, whatever their, similar to Canvas is. And just the confusion of going from platform to platform, or one class using multiple. You know, you have
Okay.
assignments in Odysseyware, but here's your, very confusing. And
yeah.
they do support students. I felt, you know, if you reach out, like I reached out all the time, probably weekly, to either contact teachers directly, or her name was Megan Lamar. She was the
School counselor.
coordinator or something, yeah, counselor. And she was helpful. But again, I was reaching to them,
And for primary enrolled,
and she's
they
struggling.
can do that.
Mm-hmm.
For the enrolled that that they're housed here primarily, we have to provide most of that, and then our point person reaches
Right.
out to RVA. So like when
Mhm.
Bree said, when we need to get someone enrolled and quickly, she or Tyler are doing all the legwork to try and get in contact with that person at RVA to get them enrolled. Admentum is a one-stop shop. They can enroll, they can instantly set up a user, I think you said in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, this morning, I did a youth mental health first aid training this morning. Anita had texted me, I have this student, she needs this class. And I was like, I'm so sorry, has anybody done this for you yet? And she was like, nope, not yet. Within 5 minutes, I sent her and the student the login information.
Okay.
And so, it's just, it's nice.
Can I ask who, like, how is it decided what classes are taught through this Edmentum?
They provide a course catalog for us.
You can choose any.
And
With the
So-
new contract, we could choose any course. With our current contract, we have core
Limited.
classes only, English, science, social studies, and math.
Okay.
so
Or
does the family
credit.
decide that with you?
Yeah, so what I do is I use the student's transcript.
Right.
And if they say they need an elective, because we do have students who are credit deficient and need electives,
Okay.
I would send them the course catalog and say, look at it, look at the course descriptions, send me the course that you want to take and I can enroll you. I currently do the same with the RVA content that we access, if it's electives. Otherwise, I look at their transcript and say,
So prior to Bree being there, which I know she would have done fabulous, and I'm not dissing anybody, but I felt like it was a little clumsy with our organization between Antico High School and RVA. Like, they weren't communicating with each other, and we don't know as a family, you know,
Right.
what we're supposed to do.
Yep.
And so I felt like that was a little clunky, but.
and I was the RVA coordinator prior to taking the mental health navigator position, and if I got that 6-week email from them, I was reaching out to that family, and I was getting a hold
And you
of
did.
them. I did, you know, like, just saying, what can we do to help you? Like, at one point, I was like, maybe she should stick her butt in the library or in the counseling center, like, because we gotta get it done. Like, how can we support you? Because especially with our students who aren't seniors, if they fail in RVA, they come back to us in a hole.
Right.
Worse than.
They are credit deficient, they are not used to being in school, so a lot of them are socially anxious and not a fan of the big crowds, right? And so it is a bad thing when RVA students come back to
And I
us.
think if they're in that position, like on a personal basis for my daughter, she needed all the supports she could get. That homeschool, sort of holding her hand along the way as well would have been helpful, or was helpful, you know.
And I'll tell you, I threatened one time to make her butt sit in school, and she made it. That's all it took. I'm not
So-
doing that,
But I
Mom.
like this, I mean, the support from
I said
both
2
sides is really
So-
beneficial to the individual.
Yeah. So as you look at our proposal, the major con with Admentum is that we went with a 3-year contract, and it's large. Like, there's a cost to it. So,
So this is 62,500, whatever, for 3 years.
For all three.
for 3 years.
So
Yep.
it's really about 21,000.
Correct. If you look at the very bottom of that
Right.
contract, it says like,
That's what I was
this
looking at
amount
here.
is needs to be remitted by this date. So,
Which is good, because we're going to use ESSER funds on it, and
and that was why I said we should go with the 3-year. I don't know if they'll have a price hike next
Mm-hmm.
year or what that will look like, but and when you do a multi-year contract, as we know with almost anything, they give you a discount for doing a multi-year contract.
What if you drop the student number to 500? Is there a difference in cost?
So we had them look up 125 students for us,
Okay.
and it was 14,000 a year.
Okay,
And so I could ask them to drop it to 500. It'll
Because
probably.
I'm like you, I think 700 is going to be way too much for us.
So 700 is their district-wide.
Okay.
I
Oh,
don't-
that's right.
I don't know what threshold they consider to just be district-wide.
I'm thinking high school, and we can use this for middle
Correct,
school
we
and
can
elementary.
use it everywhere.
Yes,
And I
so-
understand, like,
Yep.
Tyler and I looked at each other while we were on the Zoom, and I'm like, I don't know that we really need 700.
Right.
And they were like, this is now the district-wide
Okay,
price.
okay.
So I could ask,
No need. Because being district-wide, I think it's, we could utilize that in the
Yeah.
middle school
and so
especially.
he did run us the 125 students, a 1-year and a 3-year, and it was about $14,000 per year for the 125 students. And then he ran us the district-wide, because he's like, I honestly think you're getting a bigger bang for your
Yeah,
buck and
yeah.
more potential with the district-wide license, and I actually think it's like 737 or some goofy number
Yeah.
like that, so I just said 700 plus.
So justification for that would be it's a bigger bang for the buck and justifying the cost for the 3 years, only if we max out, the potential of it.
For sure.
So, meaning, we shouldn't be waiting for kids to have Fs. If they're struggling, they should be
Well,
going in sooner than later.
what I kind of see a potential, and this is just potential because I seen it coming out of higher ed in students that were entering there, but we see it in students coming to the high school. They come in and they're maybe math deficient, they're maybe reading deficient. Instead of putting all the weight on that teacher in the course, they can maybe be, enrolled in a, starter math or starter reading that can go in tandem with what they're doing. And you're not expecting that teacher, whether it's a tech ed teacher or some other teacher, to try and be teaching that along with, where this would just be supplemental that could be helping them along the way. And with Edmentum, we are not charged per course. We pay this district-wide fee. You can have as many or as little as you want in there. Where Odyssey, where it was every enrollment kind of ticked up that connect fee, and every enrollment, we were charged for every enrollment, whether they were successful or not. So if you have just this kind of helper course to try and get you up to a level, whether you finish the whole course or not, it's there and it's a potential to help, so.
I agree with you, Angie. I mean, if we're spending $63,000, we better use it, right? And
Right.
my plan is to use it, Tyler's plan is to use it, Tiffany's plan is to use it. We have already started discussions on how to expand it, because if we go with this, I truly feel like there's a lot of opportunity for growth while having that one system rather
Right.
than multiple that we're trying to balance, kind of like Bobby was saying earlier.
Yeah, and I think catching students earlier,
Yes.
when they start struggling, in the beginning, because every year it just builds on each other, so that way by the time they get to the middle school, they're really
We could
struggling,
even-
and high school's even
I'm
worse.
just
But-
spitball and don't hold me to this, but we could even use it in enrichment for our 8th grade students.
Or
So can you
may-
use it as enrichment for 5th grade students? I mean, if some kid wants to take French in 5th grade,
Yep.
and
And actually,
eighth grade.
Kelly Durline, middle school counselor, reached out to us last year and said, yeah, I've got this kid, he's really interested in engineering and this and that. There's nothing for him here. Do you have an engineering kiddo I could hook him up with as a mentor, right? Well, maybe we could let him explore some class online too that he might really like.
The
And what
one-
about, you had a pretty large failure rate there with RVA. And I would expect you'd have a failure rate here because kids will say, oh yeah, I'm gonna take French. And 3 weeks later, I don't really like French that much.
Yep.
Because we won't have an in-person teacher. This is independent work with the exception of Wings and
Robin's Nest.
Tiffany Tank's class, yeah. So
So what do elementary students do then?
it would be independent.
They're independent, but they're only getting enrichment. They're not doing credit recovery.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're not gonna stick them on a math class in 2nd grade and say, okay, learn your addition and multiplication and division, right?
Someday we would love to hire an out-of-school learning coordinator, but we just can't.
Do
and
they,
With the fiscal cliff, it's tough to bring that to you.
In middle school, like 6th and 7th grade, do they do credit recovery?
Because there are no credits.
I don't think that's really a thing until you get to ninth grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can I ask a question? What does this look like for open enrollment? Are they actually enrolled out, or how does that work?
No, so these are all courses that are managed through us.
So just like
And
that.
so just like our RVA course content, it would not affect their primary enrollment at all.
Okay, but something like WVS is not affiliated with our district, so that isn't out.
No, that's not.
It's similar to,
They would still be our students
We're
too.
hiring them to do the instruction.
No, I'm talking to my 7-year-old who's looking at me like, are you okay?
We're hiring them to do
All right,
the
come here.
instruction. Like if we would have X number, X kid take this WBS course, we would just be contracting with them, like they're
It's not a separate school.
teaching.
It's
Right.
courses that they can take.
So my last two questions, is this compatible with our current system, so like Infinite Campus, is it compatible with that?
I need Bree, how is it
So
graded?
sorry.
That's okay.
How does it enter into like campus for a grade?
Annette Marciniak is our counseling center secretary. We provide her the grade and she adds it onto the transcript with virtual after it.
So like if I'm a parent and my student is enrolled in a class, how can I as a parent check to see how they're doing? I have to go through the Edmentum software to see like, did they do this assignment? What were their grades on that assignment? You know, stuff like that?
You
Because I
could-
do that with Infinite Campus.
Yeah, we have talked a lot about entering progress grades and stuff like that into Infinite Campus for our students. But without a learning coordinator to do that, it is so cumbersome. I mean, I can show you,
I believe you because Infinite Campus is cumbersome for a parent too, so.
I have started this so this is the document. It's very nuts and bolts that we use to track, right? It tells you the course, the percent completed, the grade, how many assignments overdue are they, and then was it updated on the transcript?
But it doesn't tell you what assignment.
I could go in and look at it,
Okay.
but this is just an in-house document, because this has every student's name on it.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't be able to share that with,
I would like to see it more compatible with our system because then it would make, even, you know, it would make more sense. And I'm assuming, but I hate to assume anything, that it meets the Wisconsin standards for education. Okay. All right, that's all the questions I have.
So your ask for us, Katie Ann, is to push this forward onto the June board meeting for approval?
yes, if you guys
Okay.
see that fit.
So, I gotta go back to that question, what about the WINGS program? What's the potential for expanding that? And then we also talk about, should it be freshmen and sophomores? Should there be some kind of a WINGS program for them? Because,
well, we currently have the Robin's Nest, which is a similar, like, very structured, like, working with the students on credit recovery, pushing them forward towards graduation, which is for our 9th and 10th grade students. Now, in order to be in the alternative school with the state of Wisconsin, like a WINGS program or a DO2 or a program like that, you have to be 16 and a half. And so I
so you
don't
have to
think
be a
that.
junior.
So we can't
Or
provide that
second
like the WINGS
semester
program.
sophomore. So we couldn't do an alternative school like WINGS with the same quality as WINGS, or qualities of WINGS, at the 9th and 10th grade level, which is why they added the Robin's Nest, to help those students, support those students to hopefully make it so they're not in the WINGS program.
And
So
that
that's
is
we need to
new, like I
expand-
said,
We need
it's
to
a
expand
year.
that.
The Robin's Nest.
But
With the
even at
licensed
that,
teacher.
are we putting all the kids in WINGS who want to be there or should be there? Or do we have overflow, essentially?
We have
Because-
overflow because 55 students failed first semester math. Just math, right? I think it was
Yep.
In what
55-ish.
grade? What grades?
I think that was freshman math. I-
Which would only be
Do
covered
not-
by the Robin's Nest.
Do not quote me on this.
Right.
That was first semester math, and so now we're trying to like put those students into, you know what I mean? We put those students into Robin's Nest for second semester. And now we're looking at next year, okay, these students failed, how can we fit them into Robin's Nest to get them the structured support, the work on these online courses, that type of stuff for them. We can't fit them all.
We can take a little pause. Oh,
Sorry. I just needed to make sure she found her way back. We can't fit them all. Because that's just math.
yeah, so,
And then you think about English and science and social studies and Fayed and, you know what I mean? Like,
so really, we can add this, but I'm saying it's not gonna be as successful as it is now. We have those 55 students or whatever, and they're very successful because they have Tyler Lorenz to support them. It's not gonna be as successful with the students who failed at RVA because they didn't have any support. So,
Because this is still basically on your own.
yeah, so should we really be looking at expanding that WINGS program?
The Robin's Nest. Because the Wings
Well-
program is only for,
Well,
Probably both,
I'm
right?
saying the WINGS program, there is a
Yeah.
need for more juniors
For more
and
seats.
seniors.
yeah.
More
yeah.
than 55 seats,
Yeah.
what we need.
And
yeah.
that might be true. I would like to give the opportunity, like Tiffany is still wrapping up her first year. So I know over time, it's designed to help get these kids on track so they don't need wings. But honestly, in the future, I think more of this is going to be available to our students and our families. And I just don't want to be known as an at-risk school. That shouldn't be our primary population, but it feels like it sometimes.
So, hiring another teacher costs us 70, 80, 100,000. Sending one of these kids to prison costs us 100,000 a year or something. And if they're successful, they have a much better life than they do going to prison. So really, are we concerned about our reputation, or are we concerned about these kids' futures?
Kids first, I would say, of course, but.
You know,
Yeah.
I look at this, and when Tyler Lorenz came in and he was telling us how many kids were getting credits in the first, or how many credits they were getting in the first quarter, I said, that doesn't really make sense. They're getting more credits in a quarter than a student gets in a year going to school. But on the other hand, these kids, they're behind. You got to do something with them. They need that high school diploma. I don't know what they're doing with it afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of them are going to make it in college, some are going to make it in tech school, some are going to get a job. But it's important to have it.
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying, if we want to address the problem, let's go ahead and address the problem to the full extent and not kind of do it halfway. And, WVS, I would appreciate it if you would sit down and talk to somebody at WVS, not necessarily that we're going to switch to WVS. But WVS is there, and if you find problems with it, it would be helpful for them to know it. And, you've shared some of those problems with me. I think it would be better if you shared them directly with somebody there.
Yeah. Yeah, the underlying message before I needed to hang up the phone with Andy was just that we need something that we manage in-house. No matter if it's Edmentum or not, we need to be able to manage it in-house. Like, we can edit and tailor the Edmentum curriculum to meet our learning standards. We can't do that with Odysseyware right now. I can skip a bunch of assignments, but we need something we can manage in-house.
What I'm hearing is we also need the capacity to be able to manage it in-house. Right now, we don't. We slightly do, but not really.
Well, and I think it's an unknown. I think the first step is getting it and implementing with the autonomy to know that, okay, if it isn't, that we have that discussion and that you guys are prepared to have that discussion of maybe adding on and getting an additional, and with this, it wouldn't necessarily take a full certified staff member, correct me if I'm wrong, because they're taking the course through Edmentum, it could be an instructional assistant to help guide and get that where it needs to be. But I think the first step is getting this and seeing how it starts out, and then looking at, okay, we're getting too big for our britches. Let's look at what being as successful as we can be, and if that's another teacher, instructional assistant, whatever that seems to be, however that seems to be needed, we can go that route and explore it.
Mhm. For the kids who are gonna come in and aren't in the Wings program and are gonna use Edmentum, I'm sure some of them are gonna be successful, but there's also some who aren't. When they're not, you know, I appreciate your things, you're saying, oh, we can look at it next year and see how it's going.
I didn't say next year.
Well, what did you say? Put a time on it.
Maybe after first quarter, we take a look at the successfulness and we take a look at the enrollment of it. You know, in accordance with how fast we can get the partnership in and going, we could have students in it this summer potentially and working.
I have students in
Yeah.
our current contract this summer.
Yep, this
Yeah.
summer.
And I think that
Mhm.
that'll be a good test too. Because they're not
So
Wings
are,
students.
they're not Wing students in the summer? Yeah, so a good test. But, you know, we're definitely in a hole here because of
Yeah.
COVID. And
And
so,
I think we were in a hole before COVID, but I think COVID exacerbated the bleeding,
yeah,
to put it bluntly. Like, we had credit deficient students before COVID because I worked with Odyssey Ware and RVA course content and RVA students before COVID, and we had credit deficiencies for sure.
mhm.
But now, I mean, we're kind of gushing, and we need to stop the bleeding at some point and try to put a stop to it and get us back on track.
I think it's going to be really important that we have a designated area for, no matter what grade it is, for them to work on it at school, because a lot of people that live out in the country don't have, you know, reliable internet, fast internet, so you can't download the videos.
Then we're talking about a supervisor.
Yeah,
Which really should be a support person,
yes.
whether it's
Would be
a teacher.
less costly, right?
Yeah.
But it would have to be I mean, depending upon when, you know, is it a full-time IA, then we'd be bringing to you. 'Cause
Well, if
then
we
we're-
maximize our use on it, I think it would be pretty quick. And I think our school, I think we could definitely use it, to use it at its fullest potential.
You would like to think in a couple years, you know, this bubble will be over and maybe you'd cut back on that person. But, you know, the bubble's not over yet.
And that's kind of my hope with the contract too. Truly, like, because it's a big contract being district-wide right now. And I'm fully aware of that. And so truly, like, my hope is to kind of get over the hump and get over the bubble.
And do a different, smaller contract next time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what we'd all like to hope, and hopefully it's gonna come true.
It's just so hard to pilot something for a year and be able to talk to, like, its validity and making sure that, like, and not having full data to compare it to. Do you think it's fair, you know, if we look at pushing through the contract, maybe asking Bree to talk about what the possibilities of a place and a spot where these students would be able to go to fully receive just one-on-one support, no matter what grade, you know, where they are in the high school, what that might look like? Because I don't know if we've fully vetted or talked about that, and I think that takes a little bit more than just let's hire someone when we don't really know where we'd even put them at this point in time. And
Well, we have that person in both Wings and the Robin's Nest.
currently, and
So
we
I
can use
think
those.
What Angie's talking about would be only if we had students take additional.
Enrichment course.
right,
In addition, yes.
Some type of
Mhm.
additional course that they wanted to do during the day instead of, you know, in the evening or whatever.
And I think, you know, in order to set us up for success, we have to plan accordingly. We can't just do it kind of half-assed. You know, otherwise we're just shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, I think you and I are talking about two different things here, right? You're talking about enrichment courses, and you want kids to be as successful as possible if they take those.
Both. I'm talking about both.
And I'm talking about kids who really need
Are
the
behind.
recovery thing. And I want them to be successful as they can be.
Yep, I'm talking about both.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
Angie,
Ms. Ryder?
I've been searching on Edmentum, and it talks about integrating with your school's SIS system or student information system. Canvas is mentioned on there. It's kind of a brief form that I'm looking at, so I don't know to what degree, but it is referenced on there. I don't know if Tyler
Okay.
would probably have more
Okay,
info on that.
all right, thank you.
Okay, so we will push this up to the board then on the June meeting. We do have 5 other big items to talk
Sorry.
about in,
Do you want me to?
In
I
20
can
minutes.
Be at that meeting to speak.
I would be there to be
Yeah.
prepared. Yeah, so that way if there are questions.
I'm just
We like when you come to the meetings, Bree. And when you bring your children too, we love that.
Hey, you probably can't get enough of us either, huh?
Yeah, right.
So, Katie Ann, we'll move on to the preliminary budget 2022, or 2023-24.
All right. This is something that comes your way every year. And so the memo just kind of speaks over what it all entails this year. I'm just asking for an approval of the preliminary budget. Now, this really holds little to no weight, but because we are spending money prior to the budget going through the state, we do ask that you guys approve us to, at the current preliminary budget, to be able to do so. So the second document is the actual budget. At this time, it's just an estimate, and it's developed using our state revenue limit formula, and I used my very conservative proposal of kind of receiving a minimal increase. So it is an increase in revenue from last year to this year of about $300,000 from the formula. And then the other increase that you see from this year to next year is all ESSER. It's unspent
Okay.
ESSER that we currently have. We have about 4.1 million that we're expecting to have for next year to spend, which we were gauging about 3 million this year, 3 million next year. We didn't spend as much. We didn't spend the Windows project this year, so that all carries over. We also didn't fill all the positions that we were expecting to fill. ESSER budget is the next thing in your packet, and if you take a look at the very bottom number, it says 580,000. That's kind of unallocated at the current moment. Now, I want to leave a buffer there because in case we do need more for the windows, which we're kind of expecting to, but we have other avenues we're looking at first. And then when things like Edmentum come up, you know, if we need to maybe look at another IA and we have room for it, this is where I would suggest to kind of look at that, because that's where our alternative ed is being funded out of currently. The testing for that is coming out of ESSER, and so it fits in that strategy, which we've already wrote for. So it includes, like I said, 4.1 in ESSER grant funds. That was an increase. And then the special projects fund, which includes Fund 27, which is our special education fund, and Fund 21, which is our activities fund. The information is based on estimates as we expect. I have not figured rollover from our activity accounts, but that is very restrictive to those activities, those clubs. So when I do figure those rollover amounts, those will be added in Fund 21's. But that's like if FFA is rolling over a balance of money that they didn't spend this year that they would have for next year, or the greenhouse is currently in there. We haven't spent all the greenhouse renovation down, and so that would carry over. I'll be figuring that at the end of this month, once we get all of the budgets in and all the expenses paid out.
I have a question.
Yes.
Where does the pool fall into this? Because now that we agreed to the contract of the Boys and Girls Club from Wausau.
YMCA.
No, YMCA. Sorry, I was like, wait a second, that's not right.
Yeah.
YMCA, that's going to, run and manage it. So how does, how much money is that saving us?
Yep, so I am not able to say how much it's saving us. It's pretty much apples to apples, what they assume the cost to be to what we are assuming the cost is currently with the director. And so what we are gonna see possible differences of is if they increase programming, we should see an increase in revenues, but there's gonna be an increase in cost if we have more lifeguards on duty. So my analysis shows a pretty break-even scenario, but there's multiple factors that can increase or like revenues or increase expense if it comes up. So that was one thing that they brought forward is they're like, we think we can increase some programming that's in here, such as aerobics classes or arthritics classes or more swim lessons and that kind of stuff. We're running a program the end of June that they're hosting for lifeguard training. And instead of just training lifeguards that are going to stay at Antigo Aquatics or our Clara R. McKenna Aquatic Center as a lifeguard, we're opening it up for others to attend that same training for a cost. And so that would be revenue.
I thought that they were going to be paying for out of their budget for like lifeguards and stuff, that they were hiring and training all of them.
It comes from theirs, but it's passed through. In the MOU, all
Okay.
expense for personnel is passed through.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and one kind of off the side question, when we get donations that go towards the pool, where are they going at it? What are they being used for?
So where they've always gone for operations or whatever they're donated for. So we just received an additional donation from, I think it was the Sheldon or the Remington for the slide restoration. So that one will go to restore the slide. Last year, we received a bunch of donations to go towards the filter project. That goes to the filter project. There's a lot of donations that Mary Ponaseket has always wrote for operational funds. And that's what kind of covers that gap.
Okay.
Because as like the Y made it very abundantly clear, a pool does not sustain itself hardly ever. And so you have to be as fiscally, active in funding that pool as
Okay.
possible. So, yes.
They're all going into funding all those donations.
All AV,
Yes.
correct, and that's the next thing. So we're talking about Fund 21 and 27. I have a couple more funds and then we'll be to Fund 80, which is the pool. So,
Sorry.
you're all good, okay. So Fund 21, Fund 27, that's special education and our activities funds. Kind of looking at the year-end activities, we have payroll payables that we will be booking and accruing, and that'll all hit Fund 10. But then at the end of the year, there might be a balance in Fund 10. And that normally gets shifted to Fund 46. And last year, we shifted $750,000. That's the next fund on here. Fund 46 is our restrictive capital improvement fund. So that is 10-year maintenance plan. Anything on that plan can come out of 46. That's the only things that can come out of 46. And so right now, we've only approved the spending of the middle school windows. So if you look, I have that being drawn down by 1.2 million budgeted as an expense because we do have that project in the works. If we didn't, that would be still considered the fund balance, ending fund balance. But so anything that's left over in the general fund, if we have a large amount, I come to you guys to ask, do you see it fit to shift that to 46? So that could change that amount in Fund 46. Then we hit Fund 50, which is our food service fund that oversees our whole food service area. You heard from the auditors this year that we have had quite a surplus in that fund balance to the point to quite a large amount of a little over $1 million, and that is not supposed to be. And so we did get our nice little letter from DPI on what's your spend down plan, and they asked us to figure $800,000 in our spend down plan. So now that we're on food service, I want to talk about that just for a little bit. Well, I'll wait on it. It's down the line.
Item E,
It's item E, so I'll wait until we get to item E for that. So we anticipate to spend at least 400,000. We're hoping for more, and that'll be in the food service plan when I speak to you
Okay.
about that on item E. Finally, under the Community Service Fund, we do have a small amount of donations that we are carrying over from last year to this year. Those are going for the pool restoration project, which is for the slide, and have been designated for that. Other than that project, there's no recommendations I'm making for that budget. That's the 300,000 that we levy above our current levy, which has been approved by you guys previously. Last,
How
yep, go
do you
ahead.
get expenditures to be $300,000 less there in Fund 80?
So if you take a look at your expenditures at the bottom of the 811,000,
Yeah,
that is what we have expended. We did the filter project this year, which was almost 300,000 of that.
okay.
So we did some projects this year. And that was all in that fund and carried over from the previous year from donations that they raised. So,
Okay. So it
Oh,
wasn't all
excuse me.
carried over as fund balance?
yeah, 300,000 last year was carried over as fund balance.
Okay.
And so you take 337,000, and then you add 300,000 to that, and then donations on
Okay.
top of.
And then the other question I had
Yes.
was, in the memo,
Yes.
you're talking about Fund 27,
Yes.
and I just didn't quite understand. Can't carry a fund balance.
Not at all. It's always a negative.
So are you paying some expenditures?
To it.
You're talking about, yeah, moving money to it, but is that to cover this year or to cover next year?
This year, special education, we're only reimbursed 31%.
Yep.
The rest is that I transfer Fund 10 into Fund 27 to balance that account. There's never a fund balance in 27.
So at the end of the year here, you just make a transfer to make it balance out?
Even, exactly.
Okay.
And that's what is called our maintenance of effort, which is that 69% at the current moment, a little less, which we're hoping that the state will up that to reimbursing us 60% and us having to
Yeah.
put in. So, but no, they asked,
You didn't calculate that in, did you?
for what?
That the state's gonna reimburse us?
No. I calculated an extra 4% up to 35%. I mean, pretty conservative, hoping it goes up. But yes, you're correct. Final, I can't stress enough that this is a preliminary budget. It's simply an estimate. It isn't even a true approved budget until August, October timeframe, in there, when we know what the state's giving us. So the staffing is the largest component of our budget, has been and will always be. And we have several positions which currently have not been filled. And so we're hoping to fill those before this next year.
Can I ask a question regarding that? Have we done any, like an analysis as to if we really do need to fill those positions?
Absolutely. So there are some positions that we're not looking
Okay.
at filling in a few areas. There's a couple in special education because caseload doesn't call for it. The
Okay.
caseload isn't there. The position of Gail Moore, really doing the analysis of those is what would that position do, where would it be, and what impact would it create? We do that anytime a position becomes vacant and then needs to be filled.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so what I'm asking is that at the June 26th board meeting, that this goes through as presented for approval, the
Okay.
preliminary budget.
Okay, moving on to C, and just mindful, we have 11 minutes left for this meeting, and then we have to close it. Approval to begin purchase supplies for the 23-24 school year.
That is as simple as what you just said. We've done it year to year, and what that means is our teachers, before they leave, they put in purchase recs to start out next year. We hold those, and we don't let them go until July 1st, and so they can build up to a larger amount. We just ask for your prior approval to be able to release those all at once, knowing that it's going to be a bigger ask. There isn't too many at the current moment, but I don't want to speak too soon also, but that's something we've had approved every year.
Okay.
So they don't get approved, I mean, you're not purchasing this year for next year, you don't do that?
No, we don't approve anything, because if we approve and push it through our system, it's gonna push that PO out to that vendor now. And per guidelines, if it's for 23, 24, we have to wait till July 1st.
Okay, nice.
So, yep.
Okay.
Okay, letter D, employee handbook.
I have a question, like, Nish, wouldn't that go to personnel?
We've never had a personnel committee, so.
Right.
It's always come here, but
Well, we never had this committee
Either.
Yeah.
It just always went.
I'm just wondering, like, why it's at finance? I'm not saying, you know,
yeah,
I don't
I
want to see
think
it, but.
because the salaries are in there and.
Okay.
and benefits.
And honestly, finance touches a lot of areas.
Yeah,
Finance is
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys have looked through, there wasn't too crazy amount of changes. We clarified a lot of things, connected the correct, if there were policies, we embedded those in here so they can go straight to it. Or just kind of cleaned it up. There wasn't any large changes. The biggest changes that I will be asking for, we have not finished yet, and that would be the coach and advisor pay. I'm working with Tom Schofield on that. Those contracts don't go out until August, and so those you may be seeing at a,
July.
yep, in July, but I have not fully completed those yet to date.
Any questions on that?
you said you did add the, like, the policy reference number?
Correct, and they're live linked in the PDFs. So like in the appendix, under discipline and termination and grievance form, the policies are now linked in there. Mary Kay checked all the other policies in the last few days and
I like that you did that.
linked any policies in that needed to.
It's always, the handbook lives on our website under the
Yes.
staff heading. And so then they can just click and see.
Okay, and so this is going to go to personnel? I think it
My
should.
hope would be that it goes right to
No,
the
at this
board.
point, it'll go right to the board on June 26th.
You don't think it should go to personnel?
No, we'll take it right to the board,
Okay,
because everybody can look at it and bring questions at that point as well.
okay.
Or we
Or
highly,
if you had them
yeah,
ahead of time.
ahead of time to reach out to us and we can try and answer them if needed.
We do have personnel next Monday, don't we?
Yeah,
I don't,
isn't it?
Yeah, what is on the agenda for next Monday? We can throw that on there.
Well,
There's some items
Just the
brought
one.
forward from the last meeting that we didn't.
Yep,
oh yeah, we didn't get
absolutely.
very far.
And I actually have questions on the.
Let's
handbook.
put this on there next Monday.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, food service plan.
All right, so we turned in our DPI spend down plan. In that plan, there is a few requests that I am bringing to you. The school nutrition secretary at the current moment is a part-time unbenefited position. And as things increase with reporting in that, we'd like to ask that that position go to a 30 to 35 hour a week position. And at that point, it does become benefitable, so we'd have to offer benefits to that position. That position fully comes out of Fund 50, food service, so that's part of our spend down plan. We also will be removing and asking that position to take care of coordination of our web backpack program, which currently falls in my office, which is kind of a disconnect area of it, where, and it's been fantastic. She's taken it on with open arms and it just fits. She can help out so much more. So my request for that is to be able to send that through for approval to take that position from a part-time to a 30, 35-hour-a-week benefited Class 3 position. And it is Class 3 now, so that would.
So there wouldn't be a salary increase, it'd just be benefits?
Absolutely. Yep, more hours and benefits. Other than that, at this point in time, we always bring to you guys a request to approve write-off balances of students who have left the district, graduated through the district, or staff who have left the district that have had balances. So this year, I'm asking for you to push forward to the board a write-off of $773.69. We, as the local budget, has to pay Fund 50 for that, because Fund 50 cannot absorb those write-offs. We have to absorb them in Fund 10. And so that's why I need your approval to be able to take that and write those off.
I thought everybody was getting free lunch this year.
Lunch is well, not everyone gets free. We have free and reduced. Mostly are free, and they are carrying, because we're getting such a large payment for free lunches, it's carrying most. Teachers do not get free, and then our lunch break, or our milk breaks, excuse me, are not free.
So this is $700 from people not paying for milk?
$773 for staff, student, and for not paying for milk and lunches. Because staff do not get free lunches.
Okay.
Can't imagine there are many staff.
It's 90. That's staff.
Okay.
So,
I don't know how I feel about paying for staff lunches. On the one hand, I think they should be paying for their own.
we
On the
do
other, you know,
make as many, like, connections, and we bill them, and we beg and plead. These are ones that have made it to the
And who maybe
cemetery.
aren't working here anymore.
Correct. Who are not working here anymore.
I mean, the
All-
staff have made it to the cemetery, or their bill?
Their bills have, so that's why. It is half of the amount that we asked for last year, if that makes
That's
any,
good.
any
Yes.
consolation. It is half the amount we asked for last year.
Okay.
So I asked that get
Okay.
moved forward.
Yeah,
So
on that high note.
with the service plan, just the position and the write-off balance.
Two separate?
Two separate. Perfect, thank you. Well,
And then the last 22-23 budget overview.
yes. Any questions? You guys see this on a monthly basis. It's trending as expected, nothing out of the ordinary.
No, just thanks for bringing this up to us, each month.
Absolutely.
All right. Katie Ann, if you don't have anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I have one final quick thing that
Yes.
I need to know whether it needs to go to the board or if we can take care of it here. I presented the busing contract, which was at last month's meeting and went through the board, to Maliette. They asked.
Unfortunately, without that being on the agenda, we cannot discuss
Okay,
this.
so it'll be next month?
It would have to be next month, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Can it just, I'm sure she can talk to you and decide.
Yeah, we can
whether or not
talk
it can
after.
just come to the board.
Afterwards, we'll talk and we'll see where it needs to go to.
Okay, yep, sounds
Because we got a
good.
15-minute break here.
Yep. Oh,
All right.
Perfect.
Motion to adjourn?
Sure.
Motion's been made to adjourn. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. And this meeting is adjourned.